Reptiles are the favorite pets of freaks and weirdos, right? Well, sometimes, let's be honest. But some of your favorite celebrities also own reptiles. So today, let's go over the top 5 famous people you didn't know had a reptile zoo in their house. My name's Adam, this is Diamond, you're watching Wiccan's Wicked Reptiles. Stick around. This is kind of an interesting one because I never even thought of this as a concept. Famous people who have reptiles, who cares? But it was really popular in the Discord channel. There's a link below if you'd want to be part of that. So let's just go through 5 really famous people that have reptiles and you probably didn't know about it. Starting off with number 5, Kerry King. Now, if you don't know who Kerry King is, invite me to live under your rock with you sometime, please. This is the guitarist for Slayer. If you don't know what Slayer is, well, they've been around since the year I was born. They've been around for a long, long time. 20 million albums worldwide. Yes, I am a Slayer fan. Hey, even Brian Barchuk did a video in 2008 called Kerry King Watches This Channel, which is crazy because, I mean, back in the day, YouTubers weren't the celebrities they are now. Like, I would consider Brian Barchuk a celebrity. He's not going to be on this list, but that was a crazy thing. So Kerry King, who's been around forever, who's, you know, everyone knows who he is. If you ever picked up a guitar, you know who Kerry King is, right? Got the cool tattoo on the back of his head. No, I'm not doing that. That would be a good Halloween costume, though. Either way, what a lot of people don't know is Kerry King also has a reptile breeding facility. So he's got a breeding facility, he's got a staff, he is very hands-on with it as well. Obviously, Slayer's not doing too much touring these days, so he's got a whole bunch of time, but he breeds things like diamond pythons, other types of carpet pythons, boas as well, and I think this is really cool. And of course, I imagine it's probably pretty easy for a guy like Kerry King to move snakes. Anyone who's as famous as Kerry King is, they can move snakes pretty easily. I know even for me, who's nobody, like I can walk through every department store, grocery store, and no one knows who I am, and it's easy for me to sell snakes because, oh, you're the YouTube guy. Imagine if you're the super famous guitar guy. So it's a really cool business plan. I think it's awesome that this guy has a breeding facility. I think it's awesome that he's doing it the right way, and he's only breeding things that he can move. So, Kerry King, you're a good guy in the industry. Let's move on to number 4. Let's just keep it on the path of famous rock stars. You already know what I'm going to say, Slash. So Slash has been around since 10 years before I was born, active in the music industry anyway. And of course, you know him from Guns N' Roses, Velvet Revolver, there's some other projects too. You're the guy with the curly hair and the glasses and the top hat. Like, I think Dave Kaufman is just Wish Slash. I've never really noticed that before. If Dave curled his hair and had like a little bit more talent, he'd be Slash. Love you, Dave. I knew that Slash had boas because I've seen them on, you know, magazine covers, like guitar magazine covers and Rolling Stone and things like that. I didn't realize that Slash was on Reptiles magazine cover in February 1995. Of course, I didn't know how to read in 1995, not because I'm Canadian, because I was 4. So I think it's really interesting that he's been so well known for reptiles for so long. I also didn't know that Reptiles magazine had a publication in 1995. So that's another really cool thing. They've been around for absolute ever. Now, Slash used to have tons and tons of reptiles, boas and anacondas and all sorts of stuff. But then he got rid of a bunch of them. So he's only got a few now. But in the 90s, Slash had literal furniture built into his house to contain them. He had a literal zoo in his house. Of course, he had a reptile keeper. He had basically a zookeeper that would help him with these things, especially when he was on tour. But I just think it's really cool that someone so unbelievably mainstream had so many reptiles and had enclosures built into their house. That's the really cool thing about guys with tons and tons of money is you can see the coolest enclosures. Like the coolest things, if they know what they're doing, there's no barrier to entry with money. Because a lot of the time, people have the best intentions, but they don't give the best enclosures to their animals because they're short-sighted with money. And what I mean by that is they get an animal and then they're like, oh, well, it's gonna cost this, and they don't have the money to set it up properly. So this is short-sightedness. And guys like Slash, who actually do a lot for conservation as well. not just with reptiles, that he does work with zoos for reptiles. He also works with African organizations against the poaching of elephants for the illegal ivory trade. So Slash, overall, amazing guitarist, one of the best of all time ever, but also just a decent human being and great for animals. Heck, the guy's even worked with Steve Irwin's dad, Bob, at the Australia Zoo. This guy is an animal guy's animal guy. Animal guy's animal guy? Yeah, that makes sense. We'll move on to the next one. Before we move on, I want to say thanks to today's sponsor, Fume, because I'll tell you what, cold turkey is delicious on sandwiches, but quitting your habit that way, maybe not the best idea. I'm not talking about a hocus pocus magic. I'm talking about the best way to make your bad habit maybe not so bad after all. Fume is an innovative, award-nominated device that does just that. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. Instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses all natural, delicious flavors. And let me tell you, the flavors are delicious, they're not too powerful, and they're definitely not too mild. I was shocked when I first started using the Fume. It actually works as if I were to make it perfectly for me. And also it kind of doubles as a fidget spinner because it has a adjustable airflow dial. So if you want a bunch of air to go into you, then you can do that. And if you want it to be more of a pull, you can do that too. The new flavors like orange vanilla, raspberry lemon, and my favorite sparkling grapefruit, which is fresh and has this cooling fruity type flavor. I love those ones. More or less, it's a core that goes inside your Fume. So you pop it open, you put the core in, you snap it shut, and then you just inhale what is basically air that is flavored. And you never have to charge the thing. How about that? Stopping is something we all put off because it's hard. But switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, it's fun, and Fume has served over 100,000 customers and has thousands of success stories. So if thousands of people have already done it, why can't you? Join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakup from destructive habits by picking up the Journey Pack today. Head to tryfume.com/Wickens or scan the QR code and use code Wickens to get 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today. That's tryfum.com/Wickens and use code Wickens to save an additional 10% off of your first order today. Number 3. Forrest Galante. Now, in my book, if you've been invited on Rogan more than once, you are a famous person. That is what I think. Forrest Galante is known for, well, he was on Naked and Afraid back in the day. He's got I think it's on Animal Planet, his current show is on. So he's a guy who's been around. He's been on network television. He's been on Rogan. This is a guy, okay? I'm very lucky that I actually got to have dinner with Forrest one time, a group, not just one-on-one, at AnimalCon last year. So it was cool. I got to talk to this guy, ask him questions. I was literally listening to him on JRE on the flight to Orlando, and then a day later, I'm sitting across from him at a table. So it was interesting because the entire group that I went to Madagascar with months later, we were all sitting together with Forrest, and we got to ask him questions. You know, where do we go for this? Is there anything that you'd recommend not to do? So it's cool to have a guy who has so much experience at your disposal, even if it's for only a little bit. Something really cool about Forrest is while 8 species have been credited to be rediscovered or discovered by Forrest. So, I mean, wishy-washy how discovering a species works, but he's credited with discovering 8. So this could be a brand new species of animal or a rediscovered species. And don't even get me started on the de-extinction project for the thylacine, which is my favorite animal of all time. We're talking about Tasmanian tigers, which went extinct in the 30s. I remember when I was a kid watching, I think it was Kratts Creatures, which, by the way, Zaboomafoo, if you think that's an old show, there was a show before that the Kratt brothers did. Regardless, and they were talking about Tasmanian devils, which are still alive, and Tasmanian tigers. What's really cool is back then, we're talking the 90s, they were thinking, oh, well, maybe in New Guinea, Papua, they were still around. They just haven't been explored. We haven't seen them because we don't really know what's there. Maybe in parts of Australia, they're still around, even though they're technically extinct since 1936. So now there's guys like Forrest who are sure they're still around, and even if they're not, he's heading a de-extinction effort as well. In my opinion, that's super cool, and it's my favorite animal. So in my book, Forrest, A-OK. Oh, also he keeps reptiles at home. He did a whole room tour, so I'm not gonna ruin it. He keeps skinks and snakes and the whole thing. So, but anyway, if you wanna know what he keeps, the tour's already got like 200,000 views on it, so you've probably seen it by now, but Forrest Galante has a YouTube channel, and you can go watch it. Number 2, Dave Palumbo. Now, if you're part of the reptile community really deep, you already knew this likely. He's got a YouTube channel, but I didn't know he was a snake guy. before I was the reptile guy, I looked like this. I was the bodybuilder guy. Most people don't know that because I look like this now. But Dave Palumbo was a bodybuilder too. He started the year before I was born. What most people don't know, even if you know that he was a bodybuilder, is he was never a pro. He never won an IFBB pro card. If you don't know, real quick, when you're a bodybuilder, the holy grail is to be an IFBB pro, International Federation of Bodybuilding. So that Arnold, right, everybody, that's the federation that they are in. That's where Mr. Olympia, that's who sanctions Mr. Olympia. He qualified a bunch of times to compete for his IFBB pro card. He came second a bunch of times. He's the best bodybuilder to never win a pro card. But he keeps a whole bunch of reptiles. This guy has Muscle Serpent University, which is a great YouTube channel. He does stuff with pythons. I think he does stuff with monitors. I know for sure a lot of boas. So he's got a breeding facility and he's an educational ambassador for the hobby as well, being that he's a YouTuber who really knows what he's doing. I met Dave one time in 2015 in Columbus at the Arnold Classic. I was a reptile guy, but I didn't have a channel and I had no idea he had any interest in snakes. It was just cool to shake his hand. Hey, it's really cool to see what you've done for the sport. He does a bunch of stuff with magazines and has a podcast and the whole thing. But either way, really interesting guy, and I do consider him famous because, it's Dave freaking Palumbo. Okay, number one, probably the most famous person on the list, Nicolas Cage. So Nicolas Cage is, I think, the Nickelback of actors. Like, a lot of people don't like him for whatever reason. And I sort of get it. I like his movies. In my opinion, the National Treasure series is probably the best Disney-produced movie of all time besides The Lion King. So I think that it's cool that he has all these cool things. And he's known for being an eccentric guy. Like, this guy spent $1 million+ on a freaking Tyrannosaurus head. Skull, I should say, right? So this guy also spent $80,000 on a two-headed snake. I saw a picture of it. I didn't do enough research. I think it's a gopher snake or something in the Pituophis family, just from the way it looks. But either way, he spent $80,000 on it, couldn't get it to eat properly, and just donated it to a zoo. I can't imagine just having 80 grand. I could just be like, oh, okay, I'll just buy a two-headed snake. But I think it's really cool. He's also got king cobras. He's got a pair of king cobras that he keeps, from what I understand, in his house. Now, he does have a trained zookeeper, and it's all locked up in the whole thing. So no shade to Nicolas Cage, not that he'll ever watch this video. But either way, it's just interesting for him to talk about watching his king cobras and then going upstairs and going to bed. Freaking wild. What a crazy guy, Nicolas Cage. What do you think? Who is the most famous person that you know that has a reptile or collection? Let me know in the comments section below. While you're there, please hit the like and subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. It helps more than you could ever imagine. And as always, thanks to the Patreon supporters. You guys are amazing. You get videos early, discounts on merch. You guys get to know about the trips that I've planned that I'm not talking about for another couple months. All of that and more for as little as $1 a month. That's it. So I do videos on Mondays and Thursdays. That means I'll see you in the next one.